Building our dream podcast studio. We've done it. We've dedicated a whole room just for podcasting. But the question is, how did we do it and how well does it work? As some of you know, this time last year, we were still in our old office running our old podcast, and we had one issue that we would constantly face. We didn't have a dedicated space to run and shoot that podcast. It was either go to the bar downstairs and shoot on the tables there, or we'd have to clear the desk in the office and try and come up with some kind of solution up there. It was never consistent, we never had a dedicated space, and it was always time consuming. So one thing that we wanted to make sure we had when we moved into this new office was a dedicated podcast studio. We wanted it for both our own podcast and so that we could offer it out to clients and customers that would want it from us as a service. Ben and Dan, my sweet, sweet bosses, enlisted me with the task of finding all the kit that we need for the room, pricing it up and installing it all. So a few weeks later and well over budget, we had our end result. I brought together a list of all the bits of kit that we needed to make this space work. The next step was getting into the office, starting with our blank canvas, which that room was, and getting all the kit in place and making it work for us. Let's show you all the upgrades we made and how it made a difference to the podcast. As I said, this used to be a completely white room, very blank. The previous guys who were in here put in these walls, and this whole room actually, it all used to be connected to the other space. But we thought, let's put in a window and then the producer can sit the other side of that like a typical recording studio. So when Ben and Dan are recording the podcast on the table here, I'm there live mixing the podcast, switching cameras, all of that. So it makes everything nice and smooth. So on the table, we've got the Rode pod mics. They're a big upgrade from the previous ones we had. Super sharp and crisp, and they work really well with the Rodecaster, which is actually powering all of the audio, which I'll show you in a bit. And because the producers sat in a different room, we needed to somehow get the microphone signals through to there. So we literally have 10-meter XLR cables plugged in here, running under the table, and then through the wall into the next room. Everything's nice and clean and tidy. Everything is in trunking or under Velcro on the carpet, nice and smooth. We have got a Facebook portal up here, which allows us to do Zoom calls on the TV. So we can all sit around here, do our thing, speak to our clients in the same room that we do the podcast. So when it comes to cameras for the podcast, we use our Canon C70, which is this camera here, and our Canon R5, just because they are the cameras that match the closest out of the cameras that we have. And then those cameras are patched through using these HDMI cables, which go through here, up into the ceiling, and then down through some trunking to the camera switcher, which again, I'll show you when we go through the producer side. We wanted to eliminate as much outside sound as we could. So we've got this acoustic foam on the walls here, which just bounces all the sound in, which is super nice. But then we also wanted to invest in some thick acoustic curtains. Not only do they block out that outrageous sunlight, they are also super thick and help stop any drastic noise coming through. And for those of you that are fans of the podcast, there's actually been a building site just out there for about the last year, and hopefully on one of the episodes you'll be able to hear it because those curtains are doing such a good job. So all the back end, all the cabling, all the stuff that customers and clients don't want to see is dealt with in a completely separate room, and all this room here is dedicated for just that interaction with Ottr. This is where the producer controls all the cameras, all the audio, anything we want to pull up onto the TV, that's all controlled from here. We've got a MacBook Pro here, which we can pull stuff up onto the TV from, Google, whatever it is you want to Google, put it up on the TV for guests to reference to, and then back to the logo on the TV as well. The camera cutting that I mentioned, we do that with the Blackmagic A10 Mini Pro, which is this little device here. So what that allows us to do is switch between up to 4 cameras, just like that. And then once we're recording, that goes onto an SSD. We use this SanDisk here. That means that whatever is cut here between these cameras is then recorded straight onto that SSD. So with the switcher, we actually get this software that you can see on the screen built in. So it's literally plug and play. We just have to plug a HDMI for this monitor into here and we get this display straight out of the box. And then onto the audio mixer. So for this, we use the Rode Rodecaster Pro. In our old office, we were using a smaller mixing desk, and then we had to externally record on our Zoom handy recorder. So it was a little bit janky. There was a high-pitched hiss that was always coming from the board. So I really want to upgrade to something a bit more premium. And then paired with the Rode microphones as well, it all works really well. So in terms of functionality on the board, we've got 4 microphone inputs, which are the 4 microphones on the desk. We then also have a USB connection level, which we can just control there. A smartphone one, which we sometimes do plug into the laptop if we ever want to bring a video into the podcast. You've also got a Bluetooth feed, so you can have people call into the podcast as well. And then you've got all your sound effects, which are very textbook, but we never use, but they're nice to have. Investing in these new bits of kit really enable us to reduce that amount of friction that we had before. You know, this is always here set up, ready to go. We can sit down whenever we want and record a new episode. And it's the same with guests and with clients. It's always here, ready to go. And that is the podcast tour done. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like. And if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them down below. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It means a lot. We're trying something a bit new this year. And more importantly, we've got the rematch of the Disposable Camera Challenge, version 2, me and Dan, the rematch, coming to you next Friday. Stay tuned. We hope you enjoyed. Consider subscribing.